See it? Okay, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, Raghu, we can see. I mean,
So how is the Docker preparation going on?
I missed the last class, but I went through all your tutorial, the video. But yeah, I could cope up with all the things that you covered there.
Oh, okay, good. How about others? Anyone? Any questions? But the Docker is, I think, right? That is the future technology. And Kubernetes all depends on Docker. So
The Kubernetes platform itself is for Dockers, right, Raghu? We cannot do anything else without Dockers or containers.
Kubernetes is an open source orchestration tool, which actually helps to orchestrate these containers. Now, it is not tightly coupled with Docker. It can accommodate any type of containers other than Docker also, but such as like Pocket and all this stuff.
Okay. So Dockers is a kind of, maybe a brand of containers.
Correct. So, but here right now, Docker is an open source, and 95 to 98% of the market in containers is used by Docker. So even though both are two different what do you call open source projects, that is Docker and Kubernetes. Yeah. So right now the combination is what do you call a leader in this area. It's with Docker. So if somebody asks you what is the difference between Kubernetes and Docker, I mean, I will say that the question itself is to be corrected, because you cannot compare an orange with apple. You have to compare two apples or two oranges. So Docker is a container virtualization technology. Kubernetes is a orchestration tool. Yeah? So that's the difference.
Okay, thanks.
But if you ask me the questions, what is the difference between Docker Swarm and Kubernetes? Yes, that is the relevant question. So Docker Swarm is an orchestration tool from Docker by Docker. Kubernetes is an orchestration tool by Google for container world.
Okay, but this containerization technology is not limited to Dockers. It can be from, as you mentioned, like Pockets and other stuff are there, which provides this containerization technology.
Correct. Yes. And Docker is not. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, the doubt was that Kubernetes supports like Kubernetes is an orchestration tool only for the containers, right? So it has nothing else to do with that.
Nothing else. It is not having any container engine within it. You have to inject a container engine while installing Kubernetes. So which one, if you don't mention anything, by default Docker it will install. And if you want to mention, yeah, you have to mention the Docker engine module and software while installing Kubernetes on the server side. Anyway, that thing Kubernetes we're going to start, I think, by tomorrow. Yeah, so we have like 2-3 days session on that, so you'll get some good idea. Any other questions from Docker or any other stuff related, content related from anyone? Whatever the topics which we covered. So just a refresh, I'll ask very basic questions because it was a weekend, right? So chances are there that we might have deviated. So which language Docker was developed?
Go language.
How many components are, what is the architecture of Docker?
Architecture?
Of the Docker. I mean, how many tools components will be there when you install Docker in a machine?
Two things. One is Docker engine, which interacts with the OS, and another is containers, which interacts with the Docker engine to process on OS.
The difference between Docker run and Docker execution.
Docker run actually spins up the containers using images. Docker execute exec, right? That it allows us to enter inside the spinning container.
What is the difference between capital -P and a small -p?
Uppercase P actually gives us the default port that some application running inside the spinning container. The small p, we can actually map that port to our specific port on the.
Okay. Yeah. So on the machine, like it can small p, you can customize which port you want to map from the, let's say in this our lab case, EC2 side. And also when you use like small p, you have to know what is the port on which the particular program is running inside the container. Whereas capital P, automatically it will map. So what is Docker file?
It contains a set of instructions to create images from it. We use Docker commit to actually create our own image from it.
Okay. What is volume?
Which helps us to persist the data of, from the containers, where we can share the data across containers.
So what is the IP address of a container by default which Docker allocates the range, IP range? Anyone?
No, I'm not sure about it.
I think 172 series.
Yeah, correct. 172.17. Right. So this IP, is it a private IP or I mean, okay, I'll rephrase this question. Can I do SSH to a container?
No, it's not possible.
Okay.
Because container is running in one server means and the server Docker itself assign that IP internally.
Okay, I'll try to put a statement to this. So I'll do one thing that I know it is 22 port, right? Port 22. So I'll do a port mapping, okay, to the 22. So if I do putty to 22, the port mapping is like directly going to the container. So in that case, if I just give the IP address of my EC2 public IP, because I've done port mapping, I can log into the container, no?
Yes, Raghu, that can be done. Yeah. We interact like we do access the Tomcat running inside the containers. In the same way, we can access the putty terminal or other stuff, right? Through SSH.
Okay. So let's get started. We bring the presentation. So we all right. So this let's quickly work on this operation side. So
Ravi, you are ready to share the screen or is it already
oh,
on?
I thought I already shared. It's not visible.
It is visible.
It is visible, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Let me check. Okay, I'll read.
Yeah. So what we so far learned, like we learn about this thing, and that is benefits of containers, Docker concepts, simple container example, fundamentals, building images, managing, pushing those images to hub, basic container networking, and then we try to do one CI with Docker. And yeah, this we'll try to just learn about some of the troubleshooting part of the containers or the security practices. Then what are the different ways to set up your own private registry? And then yeah, so then we will move on to the swarm and compose and other stuff there. The troubleshooting is generally one of the key skills we have to have. So for example, if there is an issue with an application which is migrated into container, how do you troubleshoot that? One is Docker logs and the container name, or use Docker logs -f the container name. So these are the multiple ways we can track a container. Now, it is good practice that you define log location to a folder which is not there in the container set. For example, let's say I'm trying to set up an application in a web server called Nginx. So always try to store the logs outside of the container so that development team can access those logs directly without again requesting us to share the details of the container, etc. there. And then so if you yeah, so looking into this example, yeah, let's say if it is Tomcat, try to access those application logs of containers, Tomcat access from outside. Also, there is one more utility, inspecting a container. So Docker inspect is the best option. We have seen that now output also in JSON array. So you can always use this pipe filter to find out a component. In this case, grep IP address. You get the IP address of the container to find out quickly. Also inspect command. It also displays a lot of the parameters of the container, such as the condition of the container, the status of the volume mounting points, if there is any volume mounted, and then through which image the container is spinned up, and the utilization of the resource utilization of this particular container. Everything it will try to share. Starting, stopping Docker daemon we have discussed. Docker service, Docker stop service, Docker start, restart, etc. So yeah, you can kill that in case if it is pure environment development, not for environment, if it is not responding, you can always do that stuff. The Docker daemon configuration file, yeah, right now it is etc default, but in RHEL CentOS it is etc sysconfig. That varies from flavor to flavor. It is not standard. Yeah, so wherein you can always change the log level of the Docker. Let's say I want to move this to debug. So this here you have an environment variable called docker_opts, where the log level can be changed to debug. Also, if you don't want to connect to Docker Hub, you want to have your own registry also. You have to supply those details here itself in secure registry. So wherein, so by default, you need to give the domain name and where the repository will be running and which port it is listening. Now, starting the Docker domain log level, yeah. So once everything is done, this way also you can start the Docker. For example, Docker D log level debug. So this way you can modify for troubleshooting point of view for any complex issues. Now, how secure it is. So this containers, how to basically secure these containers. So this is a lot of application team or will be asking, so can we secure this thing? Yes. So Docker always helps the application which are deploying in the container by securing, by reducing a lot of the capabilities or the privileges that the container can carry. So we know that the Docker engine works using a feature of kernel called namespace, which basically isolate the process which is running in the memory. So which will have its own network, root and IPC, etc. here. So any process running inside the container, generally the advantage because of this namespace is that they cannot see the effect process in the another container. It will work on an isolated area here. So process running in one container cannot see the effect process in another container. So you have an option called C group, isolate resources usage per container here, ensure that which actually also compromised container won't bring down the entire host by exhausting resources here. Any questions on this? Have you ever worked on like a container part?
Raghu, these control groups are covered.
The control group is a future. I mean, it is a kernel part. It is not something which is Docker side.
Oh, okay.
So what we are trying to discuss is that with that we can go for security. Now, how it will be done? Well, I'm going to just discuss probably practical We're not doing anything at that level. Well, I'll come to that part. So here, when we look here, you always know that the Docker has to run as a root. Yeah. So ensure that the trusted user cannot control the Docker daemon, etc. Here. So if you can use these solutions, Linux solutions such as SE Linux. Probably in case you are from Linux background, you'll be knowing that particular stuff. ARP or SE Linux, GR security kind of stuffs. So you can always refer that stuff here. So I will give you one example. This thing. Let me see if I can find out one, or directly I can access the official Docker security only. Let's see if we can access that page directly. It's a very lengthy one. Let me see if I just have one notes for you. Will help you then. Security. One second. Okay, anyway, I'll find out that notes. So I just prepared one lab, just in case, I got. Yeah. So can you see this one?
Yes, sir.
So this is just give you an idea what do you mean by security and what it can do. For example, so in our lab, so first of all we need to check it out whether this is available or not. So if you look at here, yeah, Docker SecComp is there. Yes, it is used by our EC2 machine. So it's just a security option. Now using that, I'll give you one example what it can do. So I just want to find out whether this is enabled or not. Yeah, it is enabled here. A lot of examples. So this is a repository managed by Docker itself, security managed. So if I access this, you will see a lot of Docker components to learn just in case you are interested in all these things. So there are a lot of tools available here, managed by Docker, open source. Now here we are interested to learn about some labs part. So let me just try to access labs, security, all this stuff. Here. We are under labs. Now we'll go to security. Now let's go to the security component. Then let's go to SecComp. Okay, maybe I think this guy is I think so. What we can do, I can check out the entire stuff here into my local machine. Just clone this thing. I'm not going to do entire this exercise, but I'm just showcasing you security. How can secure a container for an application? So git clone this labs for us. So under this, go to security. So good to see some sample and then go to seccomp. So then seccomp exam and seccomp files. Yeah, the path is changed. That could be the reason you are not able to things. Now, so I'll show you one example. Let's say that in my container, I do not want this command to run. So these are some of the commands generally. Right now, everything is allowed here and all this thing, but we don't see chmod. So what we are trying to do by default. These are the syscalls. Now, what do you mean by syscalls? Linux, whenever let's say you execute a command, ls, pwd, all that stuff, it actually calls internal syscalls. I'll just demonstrate what do you mean by syscalls. Then you'll get an idea what we're talking about. So let me get one small utility which will help you to what is exactly syscall. So we need this software called Trace. Install Trace here. So this software as it is available. Install Trace. Okay, things which Trace. Yes, Trace is already there in the box, it seems. So that's good for us. So there is a command called who am I. So what is who am I? Just gives the username, or what is the command like ls, give you the list of the files here. So in the background, I want to find out what are the syscalls it is using. This particular trace command I'm copying and I'm just pasting here. So my syscall is calling these the stuff in the background. So these are the system calls. So internally, the particular Linux components, it is trying to call this is option stuff. To execute this, who am I? Basically, it's a program. You can even then this you can sell it. So you can play with this thing. ls. So these are the system calls it is trying to do. Then just like you started some new container, files, right? And then so you use the stage program to list a lot of the system calls. So who my program, all this stuff. Now, based on that, let's say that I would like to now chmod JSON file this thing. So for example, chmod is right now, is it allowed or not? It is not allowed. That's what I'm saying, right? Using this JSON file, I'll spin up a container and we'll try to find out inside the container that the chmod is really working or not. So I'm just taking one example command. This is docker run command. Alphen is a lightweight Linux. I'm trying to use this particular command. So here, instead of deny, I'll use default. chmod.json file. Okay, I think it's already inside the folder. And then I think you don't need to give the path this time. PWD, it is working. Now let me try with chmod. So chmod, where are we? We are under this folder. Okay, ls. So let me create a file. That's abc.txt. chmod 777 abc.txt. So what is it is saying? Because operation is not permitted, it's saying that the chmod is not working. Why? Because in the system calls we blocked it. So this way we can reduce uh, the privileges of the container here. So now I'll come out of this container. Now, what is this JSON file which I used? The default .-no chmod.json file here. So let me add chmod option to this particular container here now. So I'm saying that I'm going to accept chmod also now. Yes. So I'm trying to accept the chmod. So what is the command which we'll be looking? So probably I don't think I'll use one of the already existing this thing chown. So this is the command, right? So now I'll just replace that with chmod. I think accept is already there. So chmod. So I'm saying that please allow this secure act call chmod inside the container. I'm changing the existing file only. Now if I spin up saying that docker run, see IT we have seen interactive. Remove means please remove the container once the activity is done. Now this is like adding some capital letter all security option using app or more unconfined, but I'm using security of we are using this is the JSON file which is already written, and that is what I'm going to deploy. So what is it saying? Okay. Default there is a syntax issue. Did we miss any codes here? We missed one. Sorry, comma.
After the object also.
Yeah. Where did you say? Okay. Here also. Now we are inside this thing, so it should this time it should allow chmod. So go to home directory. fpc.txt. Yeah, so it is allowing. Chmod is now allowing. So basically, what we do, we will try to use this format when we developing an image for our company or our client. I'm talking about. So and then we will deliver this image to the end users or DevOps engineers, or we'll try to integrate it with CA/CD, etc. So with the limited privileges, we will be controlling this particular image and then delivering it to that. So that in case if it is compromised, you will not have any such kind of what you call operations, the users can execute in these things. So this way we can customize the container to its max, so that it is bound to only those things which are which can be accessible here. So this the security stuff is something like which I was discussing here. We'll spend some time accessing this link anyway. I'll do one thing. I'll share that link with you, so you'll get all the details. About the security point. Now, setting up a private registry. We discussed that now getting a private registry is very critical for any business. You cannot use Docker Hub now, wherein you can store all the images there and all this thing. Company will not allow that. So you have to have your own scanned images, secure images at your enterprise level. But in case if we don't have enterprise edition, how to set up a registry? A software is provided by Docker. What is registry? A repository image it can store. So you can download this image also, like this thing, and then you can use it likewise. So for example, so Docker push, you can push and pull from the private registry, which can do all that stuff. But the software is provided in the form of version 1 and version 2. For example, I need version 2, so you can just pull this thing directly. 1 second, let me just pull that for you. Docker run -d. I'm saying that please map this to 5000. I know because the software is also listening at 5000 inside the container. So the image name was registry 2.0 version 2. It is trying to pull the image. Now this container is going to be my private registry. This is open source. So you have to again have CLI, you don't have any GUI and all these things. But if you really want to buy the registry software directly from the so and so XYZ stuff, like company, you have to buy the license. Then you can, now what is the prerequisite if you want to push any images? So we discussed the other day, no? So the repository name should have a prefix of your own FQDN. So in this case, because it is my local machine, which is listening at 5000, anyway, you need a port mapping, no? So try to always have the image name with the particular registry name. Then you try to push it, it will be going and then saving into that particular. I'm going to say then registry software. So Docker machine, it is not very widely used, as I told you. In case, let's say I have one machine in Amazon, one machine in Google, one machine in GCP. So you have one single machine, and then you install Docker machine, a tool, which can help you to talk to this Docker engines installed into multiple platforms. It could be on-prem also. So by sitting at single machine, you can access what are the containers listening or working or images are available in each different machines. You can administrate basically Docker machine. Not very widely used because not most of the clients will be looking for that kind of diversity, even in setting up application, accessing multiple cloud platforms. So they can just generally either go with on-prem or one cloud platform, etc. But yeah, Docker Swarm, as I told you, this is an orchestration tool, but I have a separate slide for that. So we'll do the practical today. So I'm not going to discuss too much, but we'll just try to spend some definition on that. So what is exactly? It is just an orchestration tool like your Kubernetes, help you to cluster your Docker engines. So agent will be there on your nodes and you will be having Swarm manager, which will communicate to maintain the desired status of the environment. Let's say I want to scale up 10 containers, all these things, you can do that particular stuff here. So Docker Swarm is very easy comparatively with Kubernetes, but it is only for Docker. It is directly integrated with Docker. You cannot install what you call, you cannot manage any other container other than Docker using Docker Swarm. Yeah. So Compose, let's discuss this one. Now, what is Compose? As I said the last session, Compose is a multi-container application deployment tool. So through which we can create and manage multi-container applications. Now, what do you mean by this? Yeah, so generally when your enterprise, if you're trying to migrate one application to Docker or a container world, you generally don't put everything in one single container. You will have each component running in a separate container. Now, if I want to deploy all the containers, I have to manually execute Docker run, XYZ. I mean, image name or etc. So which is not sometimes executable, and then it is not the best way to handle. So that is the reason Docker provides a tool called Docker Compose YAML file. So it's a single file wherein, let's say you want to set up a web front-end container, you can set it up. You can set up a user authentication. You can set up a payments, databases. Okay, you can set up some container links or linking. I told you, let's say you want to talk to web and container, or you can spin up a lot of containers using single command. You name the number of containers you want to scale it up. You can scale it up. You can do many things with Docker Compose. So now this Docker Compose is actually developed using Python. Now, Docker is developed using Go language. So it is not bundled with Docker. Sorry. So you have to install this stuff separately from Docker website. So benefits, as I told you, like linking and all these things, now it is very practical. You can set it up linking also. How this YAML file looks like. So you have to define container in the form of services here. For example, in this case, there are two services. One is Java client, one is Redis. Now, inside that, in this, for example, I want to build the image. So you have to have a Docker file in your local current directory. So using the Docker file, the build image will be built. Inside the container, this command will run. What is this command? like Java hello world. Now I would like to link this particular stuff with the Redis service. Now where is Redis services? Redis services defined here. This is your Redis services. Now by from which image it actually linked here. In this case, the image name is Redis. The image name is Redis. So there are two images here. One, the image is building here, which is there is a Docker file using the Redis building. One here it is building through image here, Redis here. So now there are two services and it is linking here. Now everything is defined in one single file. And when you execute this thing, it will do all these instructions line by line. So build imaging Docker file in current directory, latest directory from the image Docker hub, everything is possible. So you can also link, and then finally you can use Docker Compose up here. So let's take one example. Docker Compose, install Docker Compose. So you can go to the official link, select the which OS you want. So ours uses Linux, select the Linux stuff. Install Docker Compose. We're installing Docker Compose here. Apply that and execute the permission to the binaries. So compose version is 1.2. So take one example. Get an idea about that. So I'm just using the official one only. So first, trying to create a folder. Go to the folder. Inside that, first, this example says that create some Python application. So this Python application requires some Redis and all this stuff, which we will define in Docker file and then Docker Compose eventually. I'm pasting this Python, save this stuff. So you have this Python application is ready temporarily. Now, also that Python applications require some modules. So this stuff we are trying to use Flask and Redis. Flask, Redis, two files we are writing here in the requirement.txt. I created Docker file. Now what we are trying to do is I am using a Python image because this requires a Python platform. So from Python, this is Docker file we know, and change the working directory to /code, environment to set to environment variables here. Run this particular so and so command here. Now because you have a requirement txt, I'm copying that to the container, and then install this particular requirement.txt. What it contains, Flask and Redis, two software modules it is required. There's only exposing to 5000, copy, etc. 5000, I think code is already used now, so we have to stop that. CMD finally will run this container. So Docker PS. So I'm going to stop this thing so that I can free the 4000. We are not going to build it now because what Compose says, yeah, you let me know what you want me to do. I have a Docker file builder. Do a port mapping. Now download this Redis from hub. Docker icon compose YML. Docker compose.yml. So because it is using in the foreground, I'll try to put it in the demo mode. You can use -d. So now using single disk file, now it is doing everything. First, it is pulling a Python image inside that. It is trying to copy the requirement.txt, downloading the required stuff, and then getting into the second one, that is Redis, and then trying to build the Redis, linking it. Port mapping is also it is taking care. Everything is done, and your application is ready. So two components are there working on two containers. One is Redis, one is Compose. Now let me access this application. It is listening at 5,000, right? So let me access this from outside. So some application, hello, what I have seen this time. So it is storing the data in the Redis. So even if I refresh it is incrementing that number of hits it is received this site. So even tomorrow, if you deploy also, if the Redis is up and running, you'll get the number, static number. Redis is like a caching software or database software, anything you can say. Any questions on this? Of course.
So Raghu, Docker Compose, provisions us to, create multiple images on the go using Python scripts.
Multiple, not images, multiple containers.
Containers, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So when we need containers, right, it needs images, right, basically.
Yeah, you can have images in your local hub or public hub or in local repo, or you can build images also on the fly. Like we have built one image here. No?
Yeah. So we can build the images on the go, or we can use the existing images.
Correct.
From the public repo or private repo.
Yeah. So in real time, of course, this whatever exercise we did is extremely simple one. But if you're interested, if you just scroll down, you want to get into some complicated one. Let's say this is trying to slowly complicate this stuff. You can set up some compose file to add some bind mount, and then now slowly trying to get into some other stuff. So this stuff this way. Let me just access that. Next, try sample apps with compose. Okay. So this is using Django, or this is use Ruby Rails. This is using WordPress. So if you access this thing, now this is, look at this one. This compose file, what it is doing? 3 services, one DB database. It is getting MySQL, volume mounting, and then setting some environment variable, basically accessing WordPress username and password database MySQL. And DB MySQL is ready. Now this is where the WordPress software is downloading. Where what is the image? WordPress only. Yeah, software is there in the form of images. So now two services actually spinned up, and then volumes DB data define. So always YAML, how it will define? It will define any variables at the end of the session only here. Volumes is DB data. Basically the mount point it is trying to set it up. Now it will link to the respective storage area where it will store the information. So now tomorrow, if I want to tell my junior that deploy, set up an application, what he has to do is simply just need to copy this compose file. That's it. For example, in this case, I'll just copy this thing. I'll come out of this stuff. See, I don't have anything in my box. No WordPress, nothing is there. Okay, WordPress. Simply say docker -compose YML and paste that sample. So everything is in the form of images. That's it. Only one file. Now docker -compose of -t. Your application is ready in a minute. Basically, you're setting up a WordPress software. I think you know, right? WordPress is for developing sites, blogs, BLOGS. MySQL is setting up, connectivity is setting up, database, mount point, storage, everything it is trying to configure. And then once it is running, access the application. How do you use? I think port number 8000 it is mapped. So take your machine IP. Where is my browser? I think it is there somewhere here. I don't remember what is the credentials we given. English. Continue. I think the username it is mentioned here. Somewhere it is mentioned like this. Root password is some WordPress. Username is WordPress. WordPress. Okay, password is this one. Okay. It is. That's fine. Okay. My email address is what was the username?
WordPress.
Start developing, working on this thing. So you can develop your own websites. So we did not install, in a less than 2 minutes, my entire application is ready.
Okay. So Raghu, we can say like usually in real time, the use cases will be like we create Docker files and create some images for our applications. And then
yeah, correct.
We do use Docker Compose to stitch them and spin up the containers.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
So now this is platform independent. Okay, and tomorrow, let's say one of your production server is crashed. Let's say that your entire applications are running in container. You tell the client that saying that don't worry, you just run this compose file on a bare metal machine or a virtual machine. Entire server will be up and running in less than 5 to 10 minutes. And you don't need to install any prerequisites, right? Because you already build the images, you already build the compose files, everything is there. And you know how the application works, how they link with each other, how they connect. Okay, and everything is simple, click, go. So even if you're not available, you can call your junior and then you can let him know that these are the files you need to execute. Yes. It's a one-time effort. You need to develop in all this, the compose file, images and everything. Once it is done, you're good to go. Any questions? No questions, right? So the people who worked in legacy environment and all these things so many days now, the people who talks about what you call manually building application. So they might have seen that pain they would have while developing and managing an application. Okay, now once this Docker replaced that, it was easy like this thing. I'll give you one use case. And I was working with one client, I think it was 2014, I guess. So that is when we started adopting container. By the time we reached 2019 and 20, yeah, so we were able to handle around 1,000+ applications inside the Docker. Entire environment was Dockerized. So the entire platform and everything we used to Docker. Of course, compose development is the only one which is time consuming. It will not be that easy as you are seeing on your screen. So it is lengthier one, and then we were using AngularJS. Mostly we were using WordPress, AngularJS, and then Drupal. The Drupal applications we are using. So build the applications, build the customizations, pull the code from GitHub. We have to mention all this stuff and then link all those containers based on the inputs from the development, and then deploy that stuff. That's it. Integrated with your Jenkins. So we don't even bother about setting up the environment. We will give the Jenkins access directly to the application team. Say that click this job, it will build the environment. As simple as that. So if you have anything you want to modify, so they will modify this thing, or in case they have difficulty in setting up everything, they'll come to us. The job made easy for us. Okay, now we can go and have coffee. No need to struggle and do a firefighting with this environment. When I given some simple 1-2 examples, but in real time, developing those compose files and all these things is not that straightforward. Yeah, you need to be expertise there. So traditionally, monolithic architecture, this is how you will develop, and then when we real time, when you're going to microservices using Docker Compose, let's say you have 4 components in the application which are talking to database. So what you do, you put everything in the container, right, including database. So the advantage is that you can deploy everything in one single system. Now what container contains the required components to run this particular individual component. And this component, one can be developed in Python, one can be in, let's say, Java, one can be, I don't know, it could be a .NET also. And then one can be developed probably in an AngularJS, XYZ. So that is okay. You can deploy everything in one single system and connect without these things because everything run in a isolated platform. So microservice architecture is really will make it benefited when you go into the Dockerized environment. For developers now, it's easy to understand. No need to focus prerequisites, components, etc. Yeah, easy to troubleshoot also. Yeah, but yes, and also if there is scaling is required, you can only scale that particular container. So in order to stick to one technology, as I mentioned. So these are the advantages of Docker Compose. Now the last topic in Docker. Any questions before we move on to the next topic? No questions? And I like Compose.
Are you covering Docker namespaces?
Sorry, Docker
Namespaces.
Docker namespaces. No, I'm not covering.
Okay.
You will cover that in Kubernetes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, Raghu, Docker multi-stage images is there.
Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
Docker?
multi-stage Docker file is there. Can you explain?
Multi-stage.
Yeah, multi-stage Docker file. And the use cases. The use cases.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I think voice is little.
Yeah, it's raining, so network's a little bit.
Okay. Maybe. So. Right. Yeah. I think you asked me about multi-stage build, right?
Yeah, multi-stage Docker file.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I'll probably will explain you what is exactly multi-stage. I don't have any presentations readily prepared, but I can directly take one use case for you. Take one use case. Let me see. First, we'll try to understand what is the multi-stage file. So yeah, here okay, maybe this example, I think this simple example here. First of all, we have seen this Docker file, right? Docker file. Using Docker file, what we can do, we can build an image and Docker compose multi-container deployment. Yeah, the challenging about building these images and all these things, right? We always people talks about why don't you reduce the size of the image? Okay, uh, because we have learned now this all these images are read-only images, right? Whenever you put something inside the Docker file, it actually what will happen? Copy and write system. And let's say you trying to copy one WAR file, you need to clean it up so that you don't need that before, let's say, building these images, etc., etc. So we need to use our what do you call automation logic so that reduce these images and then reduce the basically size here. Now developers or as a DevOps engineer, optimization of this image is one of the challenges when we go for production. So that it requires less memory of storage, less memory of a build process, and also any project. Even I'll come to that point. For example, Docker Compose. If you use the build, right, you cannot use multiple build inside a Docker Compose file. Let's say you have 10 services to develop, so you cannot use multiple Docker files. Also, it is not ideal that you have a Docker file, multiple Docker file maintaining, etc. here. So now there is a process to this particular example. I think this example, let me see, Go language. It is using Go language kind of stuff. Yeah. So what it is trying to do is it is trying to go to this directory anyway. The image it is using is Golang. It's Golang.1.1.6. So it is now anyway trying to run that Go commands here, Go language commands to build this certain application here. Now it is clearly mentioning that the run command here. Here the run command, this particular run command. How many commands are there? I think he is having around close to two run commands. So he is trying to use that together in a bash. Concatenation operator is using double sign. Why? Reduce the number of layers basically. It's easy to just insert a single command. Okay, but there are chances that you miss this particular first line breaker. We call it as that line breaker here. So here I think this operator, bash operator, creating an additional layer inside the image, difficult. So what is this Docker multi-stage builds try to do? That is instead you try to do this thing, how this Docker file stuff, like take let's say a Linux image here. Okay, this is probably I think Alpha and Ubuntu flavor, I guess. Trying to run this command apk. Okay, copy app to that particular. Maybe I think some application is there. Now he is trying to create one build.sh. Right. Okay. Inside that is spinning. When you run this, basically the script here, what will happen is first it will try to build the image. Yes, that is true. It will build the image and it will spin up a container. Here, first it will build the image and it will spin up a container from here so that copy the artifact out, then try to build another image. All this, both these images take up that particular system and still have the application artifact in your disk as well. So all these problems, the above problem, having two run commands so that reduce the number of layers, and in this case artifacts to images it is building, even though war file is available in your local, can be you reduced using this multi-stage build here. So the same example, multi-stage build from statement your Docker file, you can use different ways. You can build a new stage build here. So from instruction, each of them begins with a new stage of the build. So you can selectively copy, let's say that war file from one stage to another here. So this one is a Go language stuff. This one is the Linux stuff here. So here, what is the advantage? You just need one single Docker file. You don't need a separate build here. So you can, the command is same, Docker build -t, etc. here. So basically the bottom line is you will get is a very thin image as comparatively earlier, like you have two images, and like also the complexity is reduced here. Now you don't need to create a temporary image or try to extract and war file to your local system. So in the background, how this works here is that this particular stuff. So the from instruction starts a new build stage with, first of all, this alpha and latest. Say for example, now the copy stuff, this copy stuff, it will copies just the build artifact from the previous stage into the new stage. So the Go language, that SDK is available in software development kit. So any increment artifacts are left behind, and it will not even just it will not saved in the final image here. So this output basically trying to go to this output here. Now you don't need to again build this image to build the artifact here. So here you don't need to even name this stage at all. Yeah, Docker build -t, that is not required. And you just refer to them by their integer number. For example, if this is one, right? I think the integer name for this is 0 from the from instruction. So where it is mentioned, somewhere it will be mentioned here. Okay, maybe in this case it is not there, but generally just see. Okay, we'll come to that point. Basically, you can refer that stage like this is 0, and the second image, in case if you are trying to, if you have 3-4 images, no, it is the second one is 1. So you can, in case if you need, you can name them stage. Well, how do you do that? By adding as to the from instructions. So there is one instruction is available. So I think it is there somewhere at the bottom section. Let me see. At this one. So this is like stage naming a stage here. So this is naming a stage. Likewise, you can also mention, or you can mention as 0. If you don't mention this thing, this will be 0, this will be 1, this will be 2. So you can refer when you're trying to give an output from outside. So which will improve the definitely from comparatively from previous thing where you have to mention integer name. So this means that even the instruction in your Docker file are reorder later. The copy, just generally don't break here. So this is just to give you an idea what is like multi-stage will be doing. So another use case. This is only, let's say that I have a Java file using Maven. I want to compile a pom.xml, Git repository is there. So you will get a compilation, you'll get a war file. So you will write one Docker file. Probably you'll use a Maven original image and then Docker Maven clean build. It will build a war file. So you can put that entire instructions in at the top section. In this case, for example, the top section, you'll get the war file. Now you write the war file with Tomcat. That now war file is copied to the Tomcat file, and then build the final Tomcat images. So this way, you don't need to worry about building a separate image. This image is a temporary image, the first one. It will discard once you get the artifact output. Okay, and then you can put everything in one single file. The Docker stage build is all about that particular stuff. A very high level, but I hope that helps you like what is exactly the core advantages of Docker stage build.
Thank you.
So scanning, yeah, because I thought of okay, maybe because it came here. Scanning is also an option here. How do you scan? There are a lot of options available. What do you mean by scanning? Basically, find out any vulnerability, correct? Security compromises, so that now we can try to streamline the development approach, or it could be a code issue, or it could be the way you would return a Docker file, or the way the operations is there. There are multiple stages here. So how do you scan this thing? Yes, before you try to deploy, you will try to use this scan images. You can use this Docker space scan space. What do you want? So what do you want to scan? I want to scan this Docker file, which is just now spinned up. Before you push this to the repository, this command will try to scan the images using the command line interface called Docker scan here. You can take care, of course, using Docker Hub scans also for detailed output. So Docker, when you upload an image, you have an option called scan in the hub also. That way also you can get a scan and then find out the scanning results. So okay, this software is having some of these things. Best practice is this. Okay, right? Why don't you use IT based images? Don't use this image. These are some of the suggestions it will give to us. And also, you said you are getting one WAR file. Why don't you use multi-stage build? It will let you know. It will inform you. This is some suggestion. Or I think the image which you built from Docker file, yes, it contains so and so. Create an image. So why don't you use it? A rebuild image. So there are some third-party scanning outlets also available. Even it can try scanning vulnerabilities also. Let's say in the code itself also. If there is any memory leakage happening, it will go to that level also and try to image it. So yeah, a lot of steps actually evolving. So there is one more thing called Docker Swarm, right? Docker Swarm. Any questions before we move to Docker Swarm? So Docker Swarm is very simple. As I told you, let's say, and take one picture. Easy to understand. You have, let's say, one Docker machine, or say 2 Docker machines, or 3 Docker machine. So you'll have container here, container here. You also will have a container here. And then let's say you have a Docker lab and load balancer. So if somebody trying to set up an application for IE availability, you will try to set up this way. So set up 3 machines. In each machine, one container is spin it up. Okay, this will be, let's say, your Swarm manager. So what it will do, that Docker Swarm, the manager will verify. Is container running? Yes, it is running. It is container running? Yes, it is container running. And verify. And of course, he also is verify. If everything is in sync, then only go ahead. Otherwise, no, check it out. Some issue is there. So here, Docker Swarm, what it is doing, it is trying to maintain this entire cluster. So when you look at the definition here, orchestration is handling high traffic. Why? You can scale it up. Let's say you're right now, you're only having 3 images. You can scale it up, let's 4, 5, 6, 10, number of based on your requests. So you can deploy an application across multiple hosts or over a single command. You can also set up some load balancer. And then, there are some of the advantages you'll be having here. So benefits of Docker Compose, we have seen multi-container deployment, but that is on a single machine. Docker Swarm, this is multiple host machines. Performance will be improved, scalability will increase, etc. So we'll see one example. I think we have, I'll take one more machine. And Docker, so I think we have 24 minutes now. Let me see. Quickly, I'll start one more machine. So I have two machines. One is, where is that? So just the naming convention or easy to recognize. So here also remain installed document. Okay. So two machines I have. So how the Docker Swarm will do is that now first of all, I would like to create a cluster. So we need to decide which one should be the manager. Okay, I'm going with this is my manager. So Docker Swarm by use says that please do this particular stuff. Okay, and Docker Swarm, a lot of options are there, but less, so it is not working. So first, node I'll try saying okay with node also it is not working. So basically, it is not working until you initialize that and you make it as a manager. So let me quickly make it as manager. That, so your cluster is with the exa code number it has given. Saying that in this port, please communicate. So I'm doing this thing, but before that, I will do one thing: Docker node ls. How many machines are there in single machine? Single cluster. The cluster, how many machines are there? Only one, right? So now I'll add one more to this cluster. Now check it out. How many are there? Two. So out of this two, which one is manager?
Second one, which is showing as leader.
Okay. So what is the star denotes? Second column.
Swarm manager by any chance? Right? Just a guess.
Sorry.
Is it swarm manager?
Okay. Anyone?
Like current law, I mean, executing from that session.
Okay. Where you actually you are. Okay. I mean, in which machine you are. Right now you only have 2, but in real time we'll be having 10, 15. No? In which machine you logged in. Now this Docker node ls, will it work also on the nodes?
No, I think
From
manager only we can execute.
Correct. Only from the manager we can execute. So here we in real time we also will be having a reachable manager. Generally in our common language, assistant manager or backup manager. So we can also create that. But here anyway, we are not doing this thing. Now, how do you create that manager in case if you want? So simply you can just do one thing. You can use Docker swarm. Let's find out the command. Docker swarm join token manager. So when I get manager this option command, then I'll get the manager token. This thing you need to execute and then the other machine that will become secondary manager. So if you want node one, not node one, which one? What was? One is worker one. You get this worker one. By default, this is the one which you have taken. So there are separate tokens for that. So if you have that as a manager, then it will become also manager here. It's always good to have at least one manager separately along with this installation server, what we are doing here. So now if I want to deploy an application on this Docker swarm, I cannot do that with Dockerfile. I cannot do that with Docker Compose. Docker Compose is for single node multi-container deployment. Also, Dockerfile is a single build image for single node. You cannot deploy a container, no? So this is exactly what we need when you want to deploy an application in Docker Swarm. What is that? That is called Docker Stack. Docker Stack. Take some example. One example will get an idea. So now Docker Stack is developed using Go language. So you don't need to install separately. But Docker Compose you did install, no? Why? Because it was developed in Python. So, but Docker Stack required a repository where the images will be there. Why? Why? Because see, here we're dealing with 2 servers, right? So it will be difficult. In case if I want to pull image from here and there, it is there in that machine, not there in this machine. What if it is the number of nodes are increasing 10, 15, 20? Difficult. So all that addressed with the Docker Stack. And then as it is said, it is installed in Go language. You don't need to install anything separately. Take some example. First, let me create a repository. I am doing that anyway in the manager. Docker service create, even name to the container. Please -p is same thing, publish. This is actually elaborating, but otherwise in the left hand side, right hand side. And restrict this thing. The repository is getting ready. Once it is ready, now We just know, no, anything in Compose or Docker Stack, it's all services. So do we have any services? We'll check it out. So we don't have, okay, I think we have one services called Registry. The repository. So this is available, one registry available because it is service, it is not a container. Right. Now check it out whether it is working or not. It is saying, okay. 5000 port, right? Yeah, it is working because there is no output. Create the example application. So let's try to do some sample. So I'm creating a folder called stack demo. Go to stack demo. I think same a Python application I'll try to use. This time with limited code. So this is a Python application. Just now we also tested another thing. No? Last counting number of hits. That's fine. And then you set up a requirement.txt. Wherein you required flash. Okay, this application requirement. You don't need to worry about that. What is required? That is say this thing. Okay. Now write the same Python Docker file. That we have seen just now. Now compose also we know. Just now it gives, no? But in this case, see, we are not building image. What we are using? We are using a ready-made image in the local repository. So we have to build this image now. So let me do that. The Docker compose update. 1 second. We have to build the image, right? Stack demo image. Okay, it is trying to use first of all compose using this Docker compose file because we are not deploying to cluster. The stack demo is right now it is building. So it is building all the images and everything. Now then go to Docker stack. First of all, see whether it is built these compose containers or not. Same Python and the what is the other one? Redis, I guess. Right? Redis is what actually. Okay, there is some 8000 port is already used, it seems. Let me do one thing. Docker stop. Yes. I think here. MySQL, Redis, compose. So many things are there. Even 8000 WordPress is also running. I'm trying to stop all the containers. Now what happened? Oh, there's a typo error. Then I also will try to remove the containers also. Then now compose up again. Compose up. Nothing is there. So you need to again quit it. Yes, that is brilliant. So now come back to this thing. So when you do this thing, yes, the site is working, but on a single node. So try to bring the app down now first thing. down the volumes. Down the volumes. So now this you push to the imagery, local repository. Anyway, it is running now 5000. Oh, we just now stopped it, right? Registry. I'll try to set up the registry. What already used? Who's using? It's not using by anyone. Okay, name is already used. That way description port 5000. I think we removed all this stuff. Fine, no problem. I'll just change this port number. Let's say to 6000. Yeah, I'm going to name it as registry 123. 234. There it is. Now spin up the registry because it is required. Change to simplifies this thing.
Raghu, can we change both name and ports so that?
Oh, okay. No, no, it is running in cluster. Okay, fine. So that means we are good. We can push it now. So I'm video running. So because we did not use Docker Composer, we used Docker directly service there. So very good actually. So to push this thing. Now to deploy this to Docker clusters, because right now if you go to the other machine, you won't see anything here except registry. Basically, no containers, no applications. Right? Now you can deploy Docker stack, deploy which one you want to Docker compose file, and this is the file. Give a name to that. So because when you use this thing, so if you want to list the services on cluster, you right now only have registry. Now I'm trying to create a stack demo stuff. Then you can do whatever you want. You want to scale it up, you can scale it up, you can remove, you can deploy. So the cluster is that you no need to worry about now scalability, availability, and everything. So you can check it out. It is deployed. Redis is deployed. Everyone is deployed. So even if you go to here also, we did not scale up basically, but yeah, you can also if you scale it up, it will be increased. So this is just to give you an example how to deploy a sample application in Docker stack. So difference between Docker Compose and Docker Stack is Docker Compose is some single node multi-container deployment. Docker Stack is multi-container deployment or whatever on a Docker cluster or nothing but Docker Swarm. So that's the end of the Docker. So the next topic will be Kubernetes. Any questions?
Raghu, in Docker Swarm, like when we have this worker manager configuration,
Yeah.
so one node will be acting as a manager, right? While others are acting as workers.
Workers.
So if the node which is acting as a manager goes down, so let's say we have a few other worker nodes. So
Correct.
how does it pick up which one? So does it automatically pick up which one to become manager? If it is so, like, does it randomly happen?
It has to, you have to manually promote a node as a manager.
Okay.
So by default right now, in this case right now, we only have 2, right? But I did not configure as a reachable manager. Generally, when you will be seeing a reachable manager. So reachable manager is a standby manager. So if the manager goes down, you manually have to come down to this machine and say Docker swarm promote node so and so number, whatever. This will be the number. That is, this is the number as manager. So when you then that will become leader.
Okay, so this cannot handle the higher availability automatically, right?
So see, there will be no business impact. See, anyway, Docker worker will be running, right? So you'll be having ingress network.
Okay, so if manager goes down also, the worker nodes will be serving the purpose, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So for example, I'll show you that. So go to routing mesh. This is the architecture. So let's say this is your manager, this is a worker and all this thing. Ingress network, the IP address will come to here. So let's say that here this particular container is not there, or it is crashed. That's fine. So you'll be having a LB configured here. That LB will be talking to this any of these 3 nodes. Let's say this node is down, and the node string will be first of all, health string will be blocked to send the traffic here. Now, in this case, let's say this is your manager. This is your manager. So, in case even you are hit here, or if let's say this is also up and running, you are hit here, but container is crashed, my Swarm load balancer will route the request to the available container. So, even if this node down is also there, the traffic will serve here. Now, if this is manager, in your question, if the manager goes down also, no problem. My LB come here, traffic will route this to the workers nodes. And you have a load LB also here. This LB will route to the containers. So as long as the container is up and running in any of the node in the cluster, your application will not have any impact.
Okay, got it. So basically, Swarm we can consider as a kind of architecture or some kind of configuration where we used Docker stack to actually deploy multiple nodes with different containers.
Yeah.
Okay, Raghu, thanks, understood.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? All right. Okay. So spend some time on Docker stack, Docker compose, Docker swarm, whatever other topics we have discussed here. So tomorrow we'll start with the Kubernetes. Thank you all. Catch up tomorrow.
Thanks, Raghu.